We are going to then move to our second keynote address, and I will invite Prof. Songa to introduce our second keynote speaker. Thank you very much. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I'm really happy to introduce to you today Professor Craig Blewett, who is no stranger to most of us. I think he has, apart from anything else, made himself quite popular through his passion for teaching. Professor Craig Blewett has a PhD in education technology and is the developer of the activated classroom teaching model. Now, the activated classroom teaching model is a first of its kind cohesive taxonomy of digital age pedagogies. Underpinned by the activated classroom teaching model, Craig launched Activated Classroom Teaching Online, a series of self-paced MOOC-based courses aimed at teaching educators how to teach effectively and easily with technology. Craig's training and research into effective pedagogy-based digital age training has impacted thousands of teachers and lecturers around the world. He is also the author of numerous books covering topics such as computer literacy, database systems, teaching with technology, running, and active living. With over 25 years experience in education technology, Craig is an internationally acclaimed speaker who seeks to motivate educators to teach differently in our rapidly changing world. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me give you Professor Craig Lloyd. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you, Professor Songa. Lovely to be here. I'm just going to quickly share my screen so that everyone will know what we're about to do and where to go. Right, so hopefully you can see that. You will see a link on your screen, and I'll ask you if you can open a browser because we're going to get a little bit active in this session. So if you can just go across to menti.com and type in that code. You will see there is a code there. If you can go across to menti.com and type in that code, that'll be absolutely amazing. I will even put a short code in the chat, so you can click on the chat as well if you wish. But otherwise, just go to menti.com and you will be able to type in that code 46246959 and you'll be able to join. And I'll know that you're here. If you give a thumbs up, then I know that you've arrived. So firstly, a big thank you for inviting me to speak at this session. It's very exciting. I'm very excited to be here and to share some insights around active teaching and learning, and as I call it, active blending and blended teaching, and looking to the future. And I think particularly Professor Mawala and his thoughts, and I think they're going to connect quite nicely with what I have to say. So if you could just make your way into our space, and we're going to have a little bit of fun here. Right, so before we get going, and just while I'm waiting for everyone to get in, if you had to describe in one word how you are feeling about the future of higher education, so just one word. Now, I know that's not so easy. Sometimes I put it down in one single word, but I'm going to give you a moment to give that a try, and that'll also give us a moment for everyone to leap in. So one word. We've been talking about it. We've been through such a traumatic change over the last year and a bit, and we don't really know exactly where it's going, but the signals are quite clear. There is no doubt there's going to be a huge online component regardless. There's going to be a huge blended learning component going forward. Are we ready for it? Does it matter if we're not ready for it? What's going to happen? And I really enjoyed Professor Mawala was talking about higher education and how we need to respond to it. and how we now need to respond to the needs of society, which for a long time has been asking for something a little bit different. So let's see what people are saying. How are you feeling? Here's a little word cloud. So the bigger the word, the more people are saying this. All right, so we're getting some real positive words in the middle there. Excited, exciting, optimistic, which is great. Maybe we've got all the optimists sitting in this session here. We've got some of the smaller ones, apprehensive, absolutely, because we're unsure and anxious and nervous. Then a lot of other positive ones as well, motivated. And obviously there's words like virtual and hybrid mixed in with daunting, bright, interesting. So we've got the full gamut of possibilities here. It is an unknown. It is scary. It's unsure, as someone said there. It's even frightening. But at the same time, there is a sense of optimism that maybe this was the thing that we needed to push us to the next level, the thing that we needed to make change in higher education and education as a whole. And that's my view. Is for a long time I've been trying to encourage and teachers, lecturers, trainers that we do need to start to shift in response to the pressures and to response to the developments in technology around us. So let us now have a quick look at how things are going. So what have we seen? Well, along came this terrible COVID virus that none of us obviously saw. None of us realized it was going to have such an impact on us and on society. And we started, and I remember starting 2020, normally in the classroom doing the things, and this thing came and everything, as we all know, had to change. And we had to run from this as fast as we could. Now, teaching in a different way, as many of the people have mentioned, people from ICS have mentioned it and others have mentioned it as well, has been a possibility for a long time. I call it e-education island. You know, in a sense, we've all been sitting on education island. We've done our traditional chalk and talk. We've used PowerPoint in the classroom, for example, or maybe still using the good old chalk on the blackboard type thing. But an e-education solution has existed for a long time. And some of us have tried and dabbled with it and tried a little bit of online, a little bit of blended, these terms like flipped classroom. We tried all of these things, but we went wholesale into it. And then all of a sudden the pandemic came and we had absolutely no choice. We had to get to e-education island. And for some of us, it was like, wow, this is so exciting. Finally, an opportunity to try this stuff. Well, okay, we didn't want to do it before. Well, let's give it a go. And in a way, we've had 18 months of a huge experiment. We've had this massive experiment running to say, well, does it work? Does it work when we shift content online, when you bring in more technology? And myself, and I'm sure many of you out there have done research on this, and we've looked at and we've done papers on it. And while it's not exactly the same, especially in 2020, because that was really emergency online learning, which is not exactly the same as a planned online learning, we did have a possibility of actually trying to see how this is working. And the results from the journals, from reading just in the news and the media, things like the results in for remote learning, it didn't work. And in America, 80% of parents at schools would say it was failing, and on it went. We were getting a lot of negative results coming in. And admittedly, there's also some positive, but a lot of the results tended to point towards disengaged students, disconnected students, students who weren't making the effort that was required, just coming on. Even if lecturers had a Zoom session, only 2 or 3 would eventually rock up and nothing was changing from what we often find in our physical lecture rooms. And so this obviously begs the big question. Why? We've had this opportunity to run this incredible social, educational, technological experiment, and it hasn't turned out maybe as exciting and as impactful as we want. Yes, absolutely, there were aspects where it really worked well, but by and large, it wasn't exactly what we want. What was missing? Why wasn't it working like we maybe thought it would work? And when you look at technology's transformed every other industry. Just think of the concept of Uber, Airbnb for the hotel industry or for the travel industry. These technologies have disrupted. When it comes to education, it's been a real start and stop. It's been not as clean. And why is that? Well, I want to very quickly outline what I see as mirroring, in some senses, the fourth industrial revolution that Professor Mawala talked about and others have mentioned. We all know we're in this fourth industrial revolution, but I see, in a sense, and maybe at a broad brushstroke level, we're actually in the fourth Edtech revolution as well. And in a way, when we look back, there have been 4 educational technology revolutions that have taken place that have had an impact on how we teach and learn. And maybe there are others, but these are 4 major ones. So way back before anyone around here was alive, we were in the oral era. I mean, there was no way to record anything. People would sit around essentially a campfire or whatever it may be and communicate in simple language. And that's how learning was. It was all oral. And somewhere along the line, someone figured out that you could actually write things down. And whether that was a painting on a cave wall, or whether that was a stylus into some mud, or whether that was later a pencil and a pen, there was the development of writing. There was development of technology that enabled us to enter a new era, which was this textual era. And it sort of changed immediately how learning happened, because learning prior to that was conversational. All of a sudden, you're in this different phase where you can record things. I can learn from something that I'm just reading. I can write my thoughts down and transfer those to someone else, even if it's on a cave wall. And so we entered that second revolution, or the first revolution. Then the second EdTech revolution was the printing press. And all of a sudden, this changed things dramatically again, because not only could you write things down, you could now replicate it at scale. And that was huge, because you could take people's thoughts and now distribute them all over the place. But it had a huge impact on how teaching and learning took place, because learning became very inactive. People would read content and then be expected to regurgitate that content in an answer. And so the whole Gutenberg printing press, and what that did was change learning from what maybe was relatively active to sort of being interactive to become relatively inactive. And this was the fundamental way of teaching for thousands of years, or for at least for hundreds of years since the printing press, and in many ways persists to today. Well, it wasn't long ago, and now all of us were around when this technology was invented, the computer. And so the computer came onto the scene, and we entered into this third era. We entered from the print era now into the digital era. And this was so exciting, because all the things that were purely on paper could now be disseminated in much more efficient ways. And so notes became PowerPoints, and books became e-books, and blackboards became smartboards, and it was so efficient. We have technology, and you can disseminate content at pace. But hot on the heels of that was the fourth EdTech revolution. And this was the internet. And the internet would change everything once again. And it ushered in the connected era. And so from the digital era, where we could be efficient, we ended up in the connected era where we could communicate. And all of a sudden, it had a huge impact. Because what did the internet, the connected era, enable us to do? Exactly what we're doing right now. We could connect. We could be active. I could hear you. You could hear me. We could talk. And so all of a sudden, there were opportunities to not only digitally share content, but to communicate around that content. And so the connected era just opened up massive opportunities for teaching and learning, as it's also done, obviously, for commerce and for industry and for other sectors. And so we find ourselves on what I call education island. And very quickly, without going into too much detail of it, there are essentially 4 zones on this island when it comes to teaching and learning. And the 4 zones are, on the left-hand side, we've got what's called the digital zone. And this is really our third EdTech space. This is where we're using digital things. We're using YouTube. We're using PowerPoint. We could even be using Zoom, using digital technologies. On the right-hand side of the island is what I call the fourth EdTech era space. And this is the connected zone. And the technologies are not different in the 2 zones. YouTube exists on both, Zoom exists on both, PowerPoint exists on both, etc. The difference is the connected zone has connection. It has activity, far more than we have on the left-hand side, the digital zone, where it's rest in peace, it's death by bullet point, or it's a sleep with Zoom. And so we have these two sides of the island sitting together. And what happened when we made the mad rush from teaching on Education Island to come to e-Education Island, we came through the sea of change and all the wrecks and stuff, and we finally landed, for most of us, on the digital zone side. We finally landed on this western shore, and we've been teaching there. But very few of us ever made our way across to the other side, which is the connected zone. And I believe that is where the huge opportunities lie. And so why is it that even though we've had a year and a half of the ability to take technology and use it to teach with, why is it that we haven't crossed over to the other side, that we haven't embraced the fourth Edtech revolution and what it offers in the power of the connected? Well, I want to suggest it's because we're missing the bridge. We're missing the bridge that connects the East and the West. We're missing the bridge that connects the third Edtech revolution to the fourth Edtech, that connects the digital to the connected. And you see, for most of us, we didn't even realize that there were two sides. And so we happily working and teaching in the digital zone, not realizing just on the other side is something far more effective, but we need a bridge. And I think for many of you may know about what's called the Tpack model. It's a very simple model that says that if we're going to teach with technology, we need three things. We need technology. We've got it. We've heard about UTLO and the great technology that's offered through the studios. We've got Zoom, we've got PowerPoint, we've got Office, we've got Teams, we've got all these things. And we've got content. We're digitizing the content. We've seen some of the presentations on that. We're taking the content and putting it online. We're using Kaltura. We're creating videos. Fantastic. But those two together are going to still leave us in the digital zone. They're going to still leave us teaching in the third EdTech era. The aspect that is missing is pedagogy. That is the part that enables us to move from one side of the island to the other. It's a teaching approach. It's not a change in technology. It's not a change in content. But without pedagogy, we cannot make the transition across to the other side of the island. And so we're now going to change things up, because what I've been doing so far is I have been teaching you or speaking to this group of people here in the digital zone. Because what have I been doing? I have been presenting. The island actually has a north and a south. The southern part is teacher-led. The northern part is self-paced. So what are we doing at the moment? We're using Zoom, teacher-led. But I'm not hearing from you. I'm not talking to you. I'm not engaging with you. And so we're sitting here, and you could be asleep. You're probably making coffee. Some of you are walking the dog. It doesn't matter. I have absolutely no idea if you are connecting with what I'm saying. What do we need? I need us to move away from here. I need us to cross the bridge of pedagogies. I need us to get to this side. And that is exactly what I want us to do. And so we're going to take a little switch now. And we've been teaching on the one side, on the digital zone, and we're going to do a switch across now to the connected zone. And in order to do that, we need pedagogy. And as was mentioned in the little intro, this is where my work has focused on, was developing a very simple model that grew out of spending time almost in the concept of the digital natives with students and others who were in social spaces and online spaces, and trying to understand how they learned informally and otherwise. And the model came up with 5 active pedagogies. There's 6 pedagogies in total. We've just experienced number 1. That's the pedagogy of consumption. I speak, you listen. I'm active, you're passive. And so the pedagogy of consumption is a passive pedagogy, and it has a place, but it is overused. The active pedagogies are those which start to engage with the student, and they are curation, conversation, correction, creation, and chaos. Now, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to have a look at a few of them. But I want you to now experience just a little bit, and I'm mainly going to stay inside Mentimeter, which I'm using here. And Professor Moala mentioned this, but there are other tools, and I'll give you some links to have a look at when you get a chance. So just for sake of speed and time, we're just going to stay in Mentimeter. I want to show you what happens when you suddenly go to the other side of the island, when you go to the connected zone, when you start to experience active teaching and learning. Right, so the first pedagogy is the pedagogy of curation. I'm not really going to go into much detail on this one just for time's sake, but curation is saying, why do we always give our students prepackaged content? It's chapter 7. It's that our students are natural curators. They're doing it all the time when they're in social media, deciding what to post, what to share, what to tag, what to like. They're curating content from multiple sources into their feeds, into their Instagram, into whatever social media tool they're using. They are natural curators. And it's such a powerful pedagogy to use to encourage our students to create the content, to curate the content. And as I said, I'm not going into a lot of detail on curation, but it's a very active pedagogy. And if you do want to go and on a little visit, either while I'm speaking, and I actually don't mind if you wander off, that's absolutely fine, because you're going to probably be wandering off doing something anyway. I'd rather you wandering off doing something that is related to what we are learning here. But you can just jot down that link, and I'll give you a link at the end where all of these links are included. Or you can even grab your phone and hit the QR code, and your phone will go off to this little journey. So the link there is bit.do/act-curation. So as I said, we're not going to go down that road at the moment, but if you want to get a little taste of curation, a little bit more about it and how it works, you can follow that link. Right, but let's have a look at the next pedagogy. Conversation. I mean, what is it that we want to stay with passive instruction when conversation is such a powerful tool for learning? If I have to sit here and speak at you for even 30 minutes, which have been allocated, or an hour, you're eventually just like, oh man, it's so long. But we can sit around a braai, or we can be having a coffee together, or whatever it might be, and we can talk for ages. Why? Well, it's because conversation is interactive. Conversation has activity built in, and technology enables us to do this in amazing ways. There's so many incredible tools that technology gives us to bring conversation into our teaching. Now, I'm going to give you two options. You can go to that site there and you can check it out. It's called tlk.io. It's a disposable chat room. It's a great little tool. Use it all the time. I get my students to go there and we set up a disposable chat room. We go and we have a conversation while the lecture's going on. We could have the conversation here on Zoom. There's so many tools. You can have a conversation within Google Docs, that you've published a doc on something and you have a conversation around the content. There are many, many options. But the point is, conversation is powerful. So if you want to wander out and try that one, you can. Or if you want to stay here, that's great as well, because here we're going to have a quick conversation. So let's talk quickly. And as I said, just keeping it inside of Menti for the sake of time. Here's the question. Face-to-face and online. We can have a conversation in both ways. At the moment, we're going to have a conversation in online space, but which is better and why? Now, obviously, there's no single answer to this, but let's just get some of your views. So you should see a little box that's now appeared in your Mentimeter, and you can type in your response to this. Face-to-face, online, which is better and why? Let's see what reasons people come up for saying either one or the other is better or not. So I'm going to give you a moment to think about that. Conversation, which is better, face-to-face or online, and just put a why. So not the letter why. So don't just say face-to-face or online. I want a little bit of a reason why you think one is better than the other. So give you a moment to put in your thoughts. Right, I can see we've got a few thoughts in. Now you'll see what I've done. I've actually hidden the comments at the moment. The reason is because I just want you to think. I want the people, and this I do with my students, I want them just to think about it for a little bit. So I will show you what people are saying now. Let's have a little chat about it. Face-to-face, because you've got body language. Okay, and we're seeing a similar thing again. That's obviously a big aspect because you can see body language. We've got someone mentioning here online because you can communicate with more people. Absolutely. And we're communicating with nearly 200 connections, which is probably even more than 200 people here. So lots talking about face-to-face and the expressions. Someone's going to take the middle road. It's a blend of two, and absolutely that's probably what it is when we come to blended learning. Yeah, this is a very important one. Online, because it's less stressful to speak up. Like the person who just made this comment, at the moment using this tool, I don't know who you are. We're in a way anonymous, and this massively impacts our ability to ask questions, because it's actually only in the learning and the vulnerability that we learn. And sometimes students You all know that. Any questions at the end of a lecture? And everyone just sits there absolutely traumatized. Is there nothing you don't understand? No questions. But in the online spaces, there's a lot more people asking questions. Yes, someone said a similar thing here. Online students seem to chat more readily, but the face-to-face has all the facial expression. So we're seeing a lot about that. Here we go. Someone saying practical work face-to-face is better, always be better. I cannot teach tangible methods of data analysis without in-person attendance. So some things are harder to demonstrate and talk about. There's another one about shy kids here, a chance to respond, and the pressure of responding with peers is gone. That's another thing. When you do a question and answer, one of the things you have online is what's called a temporal gap. So if I ask you a question face-to-face, you feel the pressure to answer immediately. And online, you've obviously got a little space that you can talk about things or think about things in your own space and time. Right, someone says we have no options but to go online. Absolutely, at the moment, we don't have any other options. Face-to-face, someone said in the chat, if some comments are coming through there, detailed embodied features. Now, one I haven't seen, and you may have mentioned this, which is a big benefit of online, is the artifact. You see, what happens is all of your comments are captured, and that is very powerful because it ties in with the next pedagogy that we're going to have a look at, the pedagogy of correction, of being able to reflect later on the conversation. And so you have this persistence of the content that doesn't just disappear into the ether, that we can now use for more engaging learning as we continue. So let's now look at our third of the ACT pedagogy, which is the pedagogy of correction. And this is a pedagogy that we all understand that you cannot learn unless you fall off the bicycle. Yet the way our teaching has traditionally been arranged is it's content, and then a summative assessment at the end. Yet we know that making mistakes is where learning happens, and we talk about formative assessment, but it's vital that it's built into our teaching. It's not just for assessing, it's for learning, because technology enables us to teach with correction in such exciting and powerful ways. You just think about the fact that this presentation I'm showing here, I've changed it. In fact, while Professor Moala was speaking, I was changing it again. That's because the old days, if you remember the old overhead projector era, when you created your overhead projector slides, once you had created that, there was no quick changing of it. But with technology, you can adapt. We're in the so-called wiki era where things are not correct, but correcting. And so correction as a pedagogy is extremely powerful. And so if you want to go and wander out and try a fun little, I think it may even be a fun little Kahoot quiz, you are welcome to go out and try that. So that is bit.do/ActCorrect. So you can grab your phone and you can go and wander out and try it. Or you can stay with me here inside Menti and let's have a little bit of fun with the pedagogy of correction. You didn't realize that there was going to be a quiz. Well, yes. We are going to have a quiz right inside of Menti, right here. We're going to see if you've been listening. Right, so let me quickly explain to you how this is to Kahoot, if you've ever used Kahoot. The way the quiz works is a question will appear on your screen, a multiple choice question. And the faster you answer the question, the more points you're going to get. So you need to be quick. Got it. You need to be quick. So you're going to see series of 4 options normally. You've got to answer speedily. But if you answer speedily and incorrect, you get no marks. You get no points. So you want to have a little bit of accuracy. So here we go. We've got a whole lot of people who have joined us. Let us get the quiz. 4 people are in and ready. So let us start the quiz and we'll see who has been listening. Right. Here we go. The first of the questions, remember, it is about speed. What does this emoji mean? Oops. You can see the emoji. There it is. Okay. What does this emoji mean? Oh, did anyone get in some answers? Hopefully some of you got in some answers in time. My internet doing a little dodge there. Right, absolutely. So 16 people saying give up, 9 people saying happy, 7 people saying dancing, and 2 saying okay. Right. This emoji actually means okay. If any of you have done diving, it was the okay symbol when you come up from a dive saying okay. Just shows you. Well, one of the things we mentioned is that we often communicate body and facial language so when it comes to online. Well, a whole lot of 2 people getting that right. So congratulations to the 2 who got that right. Have a quick look at our leaderboard. As I said, it's speed, so you may have got it right. But Earthman was the fastest, and Shami coming in at second after the first question. Okay, so were you listening to what I said earlier? Here is your second question. It's going to require you to listen. Question number 2. Were you listening to something I meant? And the resourceful, it allows us to see if our students are actually concentrating, if they're actually understanding. So, were you listening? Tpack stands for technology, something, and content knowledge. What's the P? Performance, pedagogy, persistence, or petulance? Right, you've only got 4 seconds left. 3, 2, 1, and time is up. And excellent. There I can see 40 people were listening. Well done to the 40 people. 6 people thought it was performance. They had either gone for a cup of tea, but they didn't hear that the bridge that crosses us between the zones is pedagogy. Without pedagogy, we can't take technology and content and join them together. I panicked, said someone. That's what happens if you go too fast. Right. So let's see if we've had a shake up on the leaderboard. And Shabby racing to the top with LJ and Setu and Nish in the first few, and Flower coming in position 5. Well done. Right, here's a very simple one, but people seem to get this one wrong. Now, it's a simple question, but try and hesitate just for a moment before you answer. Right, whose logo is this? Very simple. Whose logo is this? Which of those is it? Quickly get your answers in. Quickly, 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 quickly. And the time is nearly up. And the time is nearly up. And there we go. The time is up. Whose logo is it? And yes, surely everyone got it right. Surely they all got it right. I mean, it has to be. Right, and here we go. Oh, no, 22 people calling it Twitter. 22 people calling it Twitter. It's called Twitter. Yeah, so there's one of 2 options there. You think it's called Twitter. Okay, so now you've just learned something. Or you went too fast and you chose Twitter instead of Twitter. Right, one person thinking it's called Snapchat, right in there in the technological era. Well done. All right. So did it change our leaderboard? Let's have a look. And we'll have one more question right at the end when I finish off to see who is the ultimate leader. Oh, there's been a bit of a shake-up. Boaty McBoatface. Remember that name. Shami is still on the lead with LJ, Nish, Flower, and Mia. And Boaty McBoatface coming up very quickly. I see some still trying to join there. I'll put the Menti direct link in if you didn't get in. Right. So that was the pedagogy of correction, and there's going to be one more question later just to see who's ultimate king. The pedagogy of creation. When you think about technology, we've got phones. This little phone thing I got in my hand, which you can't quite see. Oh, there it is. That is a video recording device. The tools that are available on the internet for creating content are incredibly powerful, from modeling tools to 3D virtual world tools, to tools of just writing down content, to creating infographics, to creating animations. Why is it that we are still teaching our students with consumption when it is so much more powerful to teach them through creating? I'm sure most of you are aware of Bloom's taxonomy, the highest order thinking skill, creating. And it's not just a thinking skill, it's a pedagogy. When we actively build in creating into our courses, it changes things totally. It changes the dynamic of how teaching and learning happens. So, quick little experiment for you to try creating. As I said, if you want to go wander out and do your own thing, absolutely grab your phone, scan the QR code, or type in that link bit.do/actcreate, and you will get to a really cool tool that is a whiteboard that you can try it at some stage. But we're going to actually try a quick little thing here. Let's see how creative you are. I want you to come up with an acronym that spells out the word active. Okay, so if you know what an acronym is, each letter stands for something. So here's an example. Active could stand for a clever teacher inspires valuable engagement. Okay, so that would be active. Right, so you're going to have to think a little bit. Can you come up with an acronym for active? Because that's the essence of what we're talking about here. Being active, being engaged, using pedagogies that change the dynamic, that make us connected, that move us from the digital to the connected, from the third to the fourth Edtech era, that bring us into engaging and efficient teaching and learning. Right, so this one's not so easy. That's why creation as a pedagogy is linked with a higher order thinking skill. And in fact, each of these pedagogies, as we move through them, becomes more and more cognitively investing from the students. As we go up the layers, as we go from curation to conversation to correction to creation, and to our final one, chaos, it requires more input from our students' brains. And that's what we want. That's where engagement, where learning happens. Right, so we've got a couple of people who have actually put in some things. Let's have a quick little squiz at what people have come up. Achieving competitiveness through innovation and value. Lovely. A creative teacher inspires virtual engagement. Any colleagues thrive in value engagement. A creative teacher is very effective. Wow, these people are coming with so many clever ones. Achieving competitiveness through innovation and value. Any creatures takes initiative and value from education. There's an extra F in there. Activated classroom teachers is very engaging. Yashin, well done, just Yashin is active. A creative teacher innovates, venturing excitedly. A classroom 2, inventive, very exciting. A creative task is very entertaining, absolutely. And construct to invent vital education tools. Wow, there are so many. It's amazing in just such a short time. Action, creativity, timely, innovative, and engagement. All can teach in value era. Right, well done. Now what happened? Just in that short time, we've got 30 people who have activated their brains. And you've actually created something. You created, and that's the other aspect of this pedagogy that we can't go into. It leaves an artifact again. And again, that is so vital for part of learning and for even having evidence of our learning. Right, so well done to everyone who submitted something there. We're just going to finish off now with our last of the ACT pedagogies, which is the pedagogy of chaos. And again, I don't really have time to go into this one, but chaos is such an exciting pedagogy because you wouldn't even think that chaos would be a pedagogy. I love this quote from William Dole. And he says, the teacher must intentionally cause enough chaos to motivate the student to reorganize. I've got an up and a down there, an up thumb if you've ever done this and a down thumb if you've never done this. Have you ever intentionally created pressure on your students to force them to try and think and focus? You know, we often want to make everything easy, make it smooth, reduce the strain on the cognitive load. But that's not how you build muscles. When you build muscles, you go to a gym and you put strain on you. And the same comes with the brain. Intentionally, not unintentionally, intentionally designing a strain is very valuable. And that's what the pedagogy of chaos is all about. And I see quite a few of you have tried something like that. And chaos is a pedagogy, well, you see if you can read that. I'm not going to read it. See if you can read that. To make sense of noise and see patterns. That's noise, but we can actually see the patterns, and that's what chaos is about. It's about this coming together of two important aspects, pressure and perception. And it's a really fascinating pedagogy. And so if you want to have a taste of chaos, this is a little tool that I developed that's just called Act Quick. That is a great way, especially if you're working with research students. In fact, if you're working with anyone, you can run it in a class. It creates a massive stress environment in order to try and help students perceive clearly. So there's the link on the screen. And as I said, we will come back to a page later where you can see all the links. Right, so I just want to tie off everything now as our time dwindles. And what's happened? Well, I just want to welcome you to the active connected side of the island. We've moved. There is no going back. We are going to be teaching in e-education island, whether it is blended, whether it is a lot more online. The question is, how are we going to do it? We cannot stay in the old space. We can't simply take the teaching approaches we had on Education Island and bring them across to this island and think we're going to carry on doing that. We can't carry on with this death with our PowerPoint and snooze with Zoom. we've got to find engagement. It's absolutely critical. And so here, your final question, I think it is, to see who is going to be crowned king of those who have been listening. You're going to need to focus. And so this is going to be your final question. And I'm just going to give you a warning on this final question. It's going to be about speed. So question 6 of 6. The key to active blended teaching is which of these? Speed. It's all about speed. Go, go, go. Here we go. The key to active blended teaching is which of these? 3 seconds, 2, 1, and the time is up. And the answers are in pedagogies, activity, paradigm shifts, engagement, and the correct answer is all of those. Right. Well done. A lot of you went for pedagogies, but I focused on that. But the pedagogies must be active pedagogies. And to actually even adopt this, we need a paradigm shift because we are not used to teaching like this. We used to teaching in a much more instructivist way. The key is engagement. All of these things are key to teaching in the future as we go forward. And so here we go. The leaderboard. Who is it that now stands on the top? And the results are being tallied. The auditors have catched them up. And here we're going to see who is the leader at the top. None other than LJ. Well done, LJ. You are incredible. Whoever you are amazing. LJ was Shelley. Oh, Shelley. I think I might know who Shelley D is. Well done, Shelley D, Flower, Mia, and Dragon Green. Well done to all of you who participated. At the end of the day, the old sort of saying, we're all winners. You're a winner if you were involved with the activity. That's really what it stands, but particularly LJ was a winner. And so if we want to bridge the gap between the two sides of the island, we've got to, as the model says, we have to have pedagogies. We have to have active digital pedagogies. That is a thing that's going to bridge technology and content, and that's going to help make the change. And so hopefully you're feeling a bit brighter about the future. And I know some of you are a little bit worried. So there is a picture, and you can pin how you are feeling on that picture. So you can interpret what that means however you see it. I've got a link up on my screen there, bit.do teach active. Yeah, that's exactly what I want you to do is teach active. If you go there, you will see the links that I pointed to in the presentation, and you can go and chase this down in your own time. bit.do/teach active. So you can just jot that down and you can visit it. So how are people feeling? Some of us are the sort of, you know, the girl with the pensive look. Some of us are like, ah! Some of us, little baby going, and we even got one person on the elderly lady going, what does it mean? And we've got a few feeling like kids, number 5 and number 6. Right. So absolutely, however you're feeling, the future is upon us. It came faster than we expected. It was scary, but I really believe there are huge and exciting opportunities if we embrace active pedagogies and shift across to a new way of teaching and learning. So thank you, everyone. And I think my time is up, and we have had some questions in there, but if there's a few minutes left, I'm going to stop my share, and the Menti will stay open. So if you haven't pinned, feel free to continue to pin.
Thank you, Professor Blewett, for that amazing, energetic presentation. I'm just sitting wondering if there are questions, since you have already dealt with that anyway. But I think we should give colleagues an opportunity to field some questions, and I will give you the opportunity to respond to some of those questions. Colleagues, you can put your questions either in the chat box or in the chat box. You know, oh yes.
Yeah, I think there were some questions earlier, and hopefully people made comments during it. But we'll just see if anyone else has anything specific. That the one I see someone has said, can I put the links in the chat box? I will do as soon as I'm finished. I'll put them in. And I said there's one final link that you can go to find all the other links that I had in. There are a lot of different tools. Often when I do this presentation, I try and go out and try the other tools, obviously within a 30-minute period to try and paint the landscape and give you a quick taste of the tools. There's no time to do that, but there are some really amazing tools that you can use for curation, for conversation, for correction, creation, and chaos, for all of these things, and to intentionally bring them into your teaching. It really makes such a huge difference. And I often use this phrase of make pedagogy visible. Think about your approach on top of your technology and your content, and it just makes a huge impact. I see there's a question on the license to Mentimeter. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I just bought my own, but maybe, yeah, that would be something that maybe the UKZN could look into, Elizabeth. Yeah, because it is limited to 2 slides when you try it. But having said that, Mentimeter is just one tool. There are many, many other tools that can be used that do similar things.
Yeah. Okay. The other question is, there have been studies that show better performance with ACT when ACT is used?
Sorry, I got disconnected for a bit. It was always had a little tech thing. So was there a question there?
Yeah, the question was whether there were has been studies that show better performance when your ACT model is used.
Sorry, my connection's gone a bit bad. Did you say whether the ACT model
is used?
Yeah, interestingly, prior to probably the last year, it's been used by mainly schools who have been applying it to their teaching. And it's only really in the last year that myself and colleagues and other people at universities have started to apply it. It's, as I said, I don't know how much of it came through earlier. It's all about taking, it's almost like Bloom's taxonomy. It's trying to take a framework that we look at things through. You know, and once we start to look at it through a pedagogic lens, it starts to change how we see things. You know, so at first it's a little bit explicit. You've got to almost think, okay, I'm going to think about this lesson and I want to explicitly make sure I've got some creation and I've got some conversation in it. But it eventually becomes second nature, and all it is, it's about shifting to the other side of the island. As I said earlier, the tools don't change. It's just a mindset change, and that's why that final question was there. What do we need? We need a mindset change. We need and that's assisted by a pedagogic lens, and that's really all it's about. It's about trying to retrain the brain, because we've been teaching in a certain way for a long time, and it's not so easy to look at it in a different way. And I think once we get a model in our mind that helps us to do that, eventually we don't even see the model anymore. We just see a new approach.
Thank you, Professor Blewett. Thank you ever so much. As you can see, there was many questions as such, apart from just a whole lot of gratitude, expressions of gratitude for your amazing lecture. Thank you so much. May I now hand over to the program director?
Okay. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Blewett, and thank you so much, Prof. Songa. As Prof. Songa was just saying, colleagues have been very, excuse me, very much impressed and excited about the presentation. And I was sitting here and I was listening to some of the things that Prof was saying as well, and it got me really thinking, we really definitely need to cross the bridge into the connected, because we're currently comfortable in the digital space. Thank you so much, Prof.